Well guys, fall is coming and that means several things. It means pumpkin spice lattes are back in and it means that school is happening again. So I definitely looked cuter in my life. But the first week of school just ended and I'm wearing my Wonder Witch t-shirt from Salem, Massachusetts. So the fact that I'm here with this review on time is about as much as I am going to be able to actually do. So you don't care about this. You don't have to look at me if you don't want to. We're just gonna talk about the next Ex Hex book. And I'm really glad that the title of this is not like that, because Ex Hex for an entire review is really hard to say. If you are not familiar with this series, I did review an arc of the Ex Hex last year. I don't think necessarily that you have to read them in order if you don't want to. However, the events in the book that we're going to discuss do almost directly build on those events. They're referenced really well in this book, but I think they work better in order. With that being said, because this book does directly reference events of the Ex Hex, this review will spoil that book. I will not be spoiling the book I'm talking about today, but such is the nature of sequels. So the actual book that we're talking about today is an arc of The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is, as I said, the follow-up to her book last year, The Ex Hex, which is technically a debut. Erin Sterling is a pen name for a New York Times bestselling author named Rachel Hawkins, who has written horror, suspense, and also YA, which is how I came to read her stuff for the first time when I was also a YA myself. And now she's writing romance under a pen name to differentiate it from her other adult work, which is like genuinely terrifying and frightening, unlike these books. Okay, we're going to talk about what happened in the Ex Hex really quickly because it is, again, important. So again, these are spoilers for the Ex Hex. I cannot help you if you are still watching and don't want to be spoiled for that. So in the Ex Hex, there were two characters, Vivian and Reese. Vivian was a witch in the town of Graves Glen, which is basically Salem, Massachusetts, but like in Georgia. So, hence my shirt. Vivian is a professor at a university that has a magical and a non-magical side, and she is not very in tune with her magic. It's never been a really big thing to her, but she lives with her cousin, Guinevere, or Gwen, and her aunt, Elaine, and they are definitely into the witchy bit. They own a store called Something Wicked, which sells non-magical items to the tourist, where their town makes most of their money in the Halloween and autumn seasons. However, 10 years ago, Vivian did do a tiny bit of magic where she cursed her then boyfriend of 3 months after he broke up with her because his father betrothed him to another witch. Yikes. And she took that poorly. She cursed him, which comes to a head 10 years later when Reese comes back, tries to use his magic in the town, ends up infecting the entire town with his curse. Chaos ensues. They have to work together to fix it. Why this is important is because the Kiss Curse did not have the pairing for Gwen, who is the female lead in this one, that I was expecting. In my review of the Ex Hex, I talk for a very long time, which is a couple of minutes, which is in the 10-minute review, quite a long bit of time, about Gwen and her relationship with the town's mayor. The town's mayor's name is Jane. She is not magical, but they clearly have this on-again, off-again relationship that I was really interested in, and that has completely evaporated by the time the Kiss Curse starts. So I tell you this now because when I just saw the description of the Kiss Curse, which we'll get into, I was already a little bit disappointed because I love second chance style romances where there's just more to the relationship than people who have just met, and I thought that that would be really juicy and interesting. That is not where this story goes. So Reese, if you remember from the Ex Hex, has two older brothers. His oldest brother's name is Llewellyn or Wells, and there's a middle brother named Bowen. And it turns out, what you know at the beginning of the Kiss Curse, that Wells was one of those hoity-toity prefect style perfect, like super powerful witches, and he was at school at university at the same time as Gwen, and they had like one interaction that made her totally dislike him, and then he disappeared for a bunch of years and she hasn't seen him since. So cut to the present, after the events of the Ex Hex, by quite a bit. Vivi and Reese are married now, and Gwen still really hates Wells because Wells and Reese's father didn't come to their wedding while Bowen did. And so Gwen's like, yeah, that was a really dick move, and I just extra don't like you now. So one of the things that happened in the Ex Hex is that the town, which was once run on Penhallow men's magic, so Reese and his family, it's now being run on Joan's women magic. So that's Elaine, Guinevere, and Vivian. And Reese's dad, Simon Penhallow, has taken that really, really poorly. He thinks it reflects poorly on his family's reputation, which it does. So he comes into the business that Wells runs in Wales, and he says, oh, I'm just so mopey and sad about this. And Wells says, well, why don't I go to Georgia, and why don't I reestablish the Penhallow name there, and I will rebuild our reputation. And his dad says yes, gives him the family ring to bless his journey, and so Wells moves to Georgia. Guinevere does not like this, especially because Wells decides to set up a proper version of a magic store. So it's like this totally dark and mysterious with a crackling fire and a tea kettle that sells mysterious grimoires. Like, it's still a tourist shop, but to Wells it's like way more posh than what Something Wicked is, which is like very bubbly, you know, tchotchke, very like, he thinks commercial witchiness for the tourists. He sets it up kitty corner to that store, and so of course Gwen and Wells start fighting. I really wish that that part of the book had gone on longer than it eventually did. And that's not really a spoiler, because what would be a spoiler is if I tell you what happened after that. Some things start happening, some sketchy classmates of Wells and Gwen start returning to town, Gwen starts losing her magic, and there's like some really, really dark and shady things going on. And so eventually they have to put aside their differences and work to figure out all of these mysteries. Again, I really loved the feuding thing. It reminded me a lot of, say, Helena Hunting's Kiss My Cupcake, where there were two feuding shop owners who like trying to constantly outdo each other. And I really thought that that shtick would be really fun. There was a lot of tension, a lot of hijinks, because of course like there's magic, but the normal people can't know there's magic. So I just thought that that might go on longer than it did, and I was really disappointed that it didn't. One of my complaints about the Ex Hex was that it didn't develop the family dynamics as well as I wanted, when they were very clearly important to the story. And what Kiss Curse does in reaction to that, maybe, or the fact that people like Elaine and Vivi and Reese are all really powerful people, is it gets rid of them. So the fun family dynamic that existed in the Ex Hex does not exist in this book, because Elaine is off at some magical retreat in Arizona, and Reese and Vivi have gone on their honeymoon to Wales. So it's very focused on the pair, their relationship, and them fighting, and then grudgingly coming to respect each other, and having some whoopsie daisy, maybe like sexy, am I attracted to you but I hate you moments. And Gwen also adopts 3 college students who are very much like college freshmen, who think they know better than the teachers and want to use their magic to do things they're way not prepared to do. I felt that was kind of diluted, because again, there was 3 of them and their personalities were not very well defined. They basically exist as like a trio that is one person. But I really did enjoy that dynamic, because Gwen is just known as being the reckless one in her family. And so to help out these students, 2 use she, her pronouns and 1 uses they, them, she has to really just try to be the responsible adult in the room, which is not her natural setting. I noted in the Ex Hex that there was not a lot of tension in that storyline, and I think that that is something where when it comes down to it, that this book did better. I think the plot is better. I think it's more well-defined, less kitschy, more, oh, there's definitely something going on and it could be this or it could be that, and some of the stuff is more nefarious than you think. I think in the end it resolves a little bit too neatly, which was again one of the problems with the Ex Hex. I was like, oh, I guess it's done now. But I mean, I think the plot up until that point was just better constructed, and so I didn't mind as much when it wrapped up like that because it just felt more well constructed the whole way through. Of course, this is a romance novel and the emphasis is absolutely on Gwen and Wells, especially because all of their other family members have been removed from the story. So again, first you get their fighting over the shop fronts and trying to steal customers from each other, and then you get them grudgingly working together because at their heart they're both really good people who recognize that something bad is going on and they just don't know what it is. I loved their romance, I loved their relationship. I thought maybe they went from enemies to lovers a little bit too fast, but I'm a fan of a massive slow burn, and while they didn't end up getting together until over halfway through the book officially, there was definitely some really cute accidental kiss scenes and stuff like that before it, so that was just really cute. Again, I love me a slow burn, but once they got together they were very sweet. And there was a wonderful discussion at the end, which I won't spoil, once again about emotional intelligence, which was something that came up in the Ex Hex also, and like communicating with your partner is hard, but you have to have honest conversations and not do things that I think in other romance novels would just cause ridiculous tension. So I really enjoyed that in this book. It's not a perfect book by any means, but I think if you're looking for the perfect Halloween is coming series, this is definitely, I don't do a lot of, I mentioned this in my other review, a lot of paranormal romance style books. I tend to stick to the realistic, but I really think these books have a great balance of adding the magical elements so that they're funny and interesting and move the plot along, but don't cause like fake tension or don't cause unnecessary complications. Like at the heart of them, the romance is still very human and real, and I enjoy that. They're also clearly setting up a massive showdown for a third book. I'm fairly certain it will center on Bowen. I'm not sure about that though. And again, I only got my prediction for this book half right. So I've made, again, 2 predictions there, and I may have gotten it wrong again, or half wrong. I think that's what's going to happen. And what I find really interesting about that is that it sets up the plot, but not a relationship to go along with it. And that's really exciting. It makes me feel like there's something to look forward to and something very fresh, and I don't quite know what's going to happen. So I hope that I'm right about that, but I guess we'll see next year. It looks like these are coming out about a year apart, so I'll see you guys then. In the meantime, thanks to the publisher and Edelweiss for giving me an arc of this book, and I am excited to wear my witchy shirt and, yes, drink some pumpkin spice lattes. And if I'm lucky, find some magic that will make my homework do itself.